all of you getting familiar with how I do class, and the Google Docs is designed to get you familiar with the process that we'll be using to submit assignments and tests that you will be doing. So hopefully you'll get comfortable with using that platform. It is really what you got to do today to deal with the process of learning on a scale that we are studying right now. It makes it a whole lot easier in the matter of doing this remotely. But do anyone have any questions or concerns besides Marissa? Anyone have anything related to the material that we have covered so far that you want to ask about? All right, everyone's all right so far?
When is this due? The questions that you have given us, I'm sorry, when is this due?
That was due on last Saturday.
Ooh,
This past
okay.
Saturday, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm a nurse and I
That's
work and
on
I've been on call and I haven't been able to submit it.
Yeah. I gave it like a week, and then I gave you instructions, the answers right there, chapter 1 and chapter 2, so that I want you to get familiar with using Google Docs. I want you to get familiar with the book of Daniel, the Clarence Larkin book, so that you don't feel that you purchased it unnecessarily, because the material in that book is so on point.
Yes.
Though it is about 70 years, not old, over 70 years old, but it is on point information and the way he breaks down the book of Daniel. So that's why it's relevant yet today. Now
I have four of his books. I have all of his books, and I've gotten it many years ago, and I thought it was out of print. But when you had said, God, get this book, I said, oh, I know I have that. The Spiritual Man, I've got them all.
Oh yeah. He was very good. God bless him. Really blessed the church through Dr. Larkin. Bless the church through his study and his effort. So let's move on, because yes,
Dr. Bennett, what now?
You're breaking up.
Did that do, or what? Something else do?
Yeah, you're not clear on this one, but there's I guess your Wi-Fi maybe a little bit lacking.
Weak.
So try to repeat it. Try to repeat what you're sharing.
The questions that you sent us, that was due, the one about chapter 4, is that what you're saying was due?
No, it would cover chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the book. It was on Google's Doc. Don't tell me I sent you the same one I sent.
You sent it in.
You know something, Sister Miles, because you joined after. You joined a little late, so I may have also made a mistake with forwarding you something. But the questions that was due on this past Saturday was on chapter 1 and chapter 2 in the book of Daniel by Professor Larkin. Now, those of you that received something else about chapter 4, here's the problem was, today is class 4, lesson 4. That may have been my problem, my fault. If I sent you something that was a test saying chapter 4, that probably where the disconnect and the miscommunication and the documents you receive probably is. But I'm gonna make sure that I'm more diligent in clarifying and identifying the correct documents to send to you. All right. So if you receive assignments that requires you to fill in information and then send it back to me, and it is not in Google Docs, you'll know that that was a sent from me. Everything I'm going to send you that will require you to put in answer and submit it back to me is going to be through Google Docs. All right.
Is it too late to send in the questions, the answers?
Oh, no, it's not too late. It's not too
Okay.
late. Yes, not too late. Okay. All right. Let us go to our lesson for tonight. Lesson for tonight is lesson 4, the book of Daniel, lesson 4. All right. And we're looking at the Babylonian captivity of Judah. And this is really chapter 1 as well in the book. All right, so Nebuchadnezzar II is king of Babylon. He's the one that is used by God to invade Judah, take them captive. So we see the captivity was prophesied. We have a notice of the invading nation, so that we're made known of the invading nation. Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 36. 2 Chronicles chapter 36. Verse 17. Verse 17. Someone needs to unmute.
Right.
Let me see. Yeah. Okay.
I couldn't hear you clearly.
Yeah, we're
Can you speak up?
Yes. Okay. We're on the book of Daniel, lesson number 4. Not book of Daniel, but lesson 4 on the slides that I forwarded to you. Lesson 4. And we are looking at Nebuchadnezzar's invasion of Judah. Nebuchadnezzar's invasion of Judah. And we are looking at the prophecy of it and in the actual fulfillment of this prophecy. So in 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 17, it says this: "Therefore he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion upon young man or maiden, old man or him that stooped for age. He gave them all into his hand. And all the vessels of the house of God, great and small, and the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king and of his princes, all these he brought to Babylon. And they burnt the house of God and break down the wall of Jerusalem. The wall of Jerusalem. Where's that? And all the palaces thereof with fire, and destroy all the goodly vessels thereof. And them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, where they were servants to him and his sons until the reign of the kingdom of Persia. This was to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed her Sabbaths. For as long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath to fulfill 70 years. All right, so we have there where it is given the prophecy and the fulfillment of the captivity. Now, what we need to understand is that God does not do anything in this world without first giving us a warning. Without making it known. He does not just out on a whim, just do things. God engages with man. And the reason why he does it, is because he made man ruler over the world. He gave man dominion over the world. So therefore, even we know Satan deceived Eve and Adam, and he really is operating as the prince and the power of this air, and he's the God of this age. Yet God respects man and the position that he gave man as the manager of this world. So he talks and let man know this is what he's going to do. If I may give you an analogy, if you work in a corporation, and you are manager of a department, the upper management, the executives, they will let you know what they are going to do in your department before they implement it. That's if they're operating, with the proper manner of communication with y'all, but they respect the fact that you are the manager. You are the one that is responsible for a particular department. So God has made man responsible for this world. So therefore, he doesn't do anything without first giving advance notice of it. And so he let Judah know that they're going to go into captivity. And this is the manner that's going to happen. Then he also gives them the length, how long the captivity is going to be. And we got to be very understanding here, because there is a difference between the length of the captivity and the length of the times where they will not be an independent nation. So we have to make a distinction where they would no longer, I should say, be a sovereign nation. When they go into captivity, what God is talking about, do you want to remember in the test or the quiz I gave, how is the captivity defined? How is the captivity recognized and acknowledged? How is that?
When you say recognize,
okay, the reason I asked that is because we know after what we call 70 years, they still was in bondage. So they still did not have their sovereignty restored. Mm-hmm. They had some of the people return back to Jerusalem, but they did not regain their sovereignty. They did not gain the ability to rule over their own nation.
Mm-hmm. So the captivity is the one where they took in it was by tens, but it was like 10,000 persons of the kings, the princes, the men of valor, and then like 1,000. So it's by the numbering.
Okay.
That captivity.
That is mentioned in the book because that happened in the second invasion. In the second invasion, Nebuchadnezzar took back 10,000 of the prince and the upper class and the chosen ones. Then he took a lot of the craftsmen and the people that had certain gifts and status. And so he left there the poor, the indigent or whatever. But that was the second invasion.
So that's not the captivity.
See, the captivity is decided by a 70-year period. And that 70-year period is distinguished by when it is ending. So really, you find the 70-year period based on when God says that 70-year period is ended. And the qualification for the ending of the 70-year period was King Cyrus had to say that the children of Israel could return back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. That is what identifies the end of the 70-year period. So from that day, you go back 70 years.
You did what?
From that day when Cyrus gives a decree, a declaration that he's going to allow the Jews that want to go back to Jerusalem and they can rebuild the temple. And so the date that he does that is in 536 BC. 536 BC. So you have to now go back in time and find out when the 70-year period started, which is around about 605 BC. So that's how you, and the reason why that's how God describes or identifies the captivity. Those 70 years, he instituted the punishment being 70 years because it was a period of time that the land had to be at rest. The land had to have its Sabbath rest. The land had been abused for all the years that the Israelites were in the land and they failed to obey God. And so God said, you know something? Along with your sin, along with your idolatry and your disobedience, y'all also violated my covenant. Y'all violated my law or my commandment that you give the land a rest every 7 years. And so now that is at the point that the accumulated Sabbaths reached 70, God said, that's enough. And so he expelled them from the land because of their failure to honor his Sabbath. And we'll read that in a couple of minutes. But the captivity is really associated with that particular 70-year period. But they were still under the control of the kingdoms that will rule that area up until, do anyone know when it actually ended?
When what actually ended?
When Israel regained her sovereignty. Come on, y'all got to know. Y'all got to know this.
I can't recall.
I'm a little confused. I'm
throwing this out there because this is current events, you know. Pretty much current.
I don't think they're fighting for it now.
I don't think that they have their sovereignty just
fighting for it now.
When was it reestablished?
Reestablished? I don't. Is Jerusalem free? I mean, do they have someone ruling over them now?
Okay, you got a point there, Sister Marissa. You got a point there, because yes, you're right. The Jerusalem is not under full control of the Israelites, though the rest of Israel is. But Jerusalem is yet a point of controversy. But in 1948, they were given this land, and that's why you got this conflict going on between the Palestinians and the Jews, because Britain got together with the United Nations and they said, we're going to give them this land. And they had been out of that land for 2,000 years. But I just throw that out there, you know, That'll be on a later test or something. so just remember it. All right. Okay. So on the list, Jeremiah 8. Let's go to Jeremiah 8. This year. Somebody read this for us. Jeremiah chapter 25. Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 8 through 11. Could someone please read that?
Professor, you said Jeremiah what again?
Chapter 25,
yeah.
Verses 8 through 11.
Verses 8 through 11. Would you like me to read it?
That'll be fine with me.
25, 8 through 11. Okay, so therefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, because ye have not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land, and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment, and hissing, and perpetual desolations. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth, and the voice of gladness, the voice of bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, the sound of the millstones, and the light of the candle. And this whole land shall be a desolation and astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years.
So there is the prophecy.
Aha.
That's the prophecy.
There it is.
And notice he said the king of Babylon will serve for 70 years. So Babylon is a prominent kingdom that is connected with the captivity. Okay, and I gave you the slides on the history of Babylon. Y'all should have gotten that slide that takes you all the way back to Hammurabi, whatever his name is, and all the kings. It breaks down, it breaks down the history of Babylon, the time that they were invaded, the time that they rose up and was able to defeat their invaders, and they ruled, and the transition. And the reason I give this information is because Babylon has such a prominent place in Daniel, in Ezekiel, in Jeremiah, in portions of Genesis, but also in Revelation. Right. Revelation, you see Babylon crop up again. So there's something about Babylon that is in controversy and conflict with the Jewish people and with God as well, with God. And hopefully, because we don't have time to go through all of the history, but you'll understand when you read the history of Nimrod that was part of those slides. You'll see how Nimrod became one of the first world rulers, and he instituted, this idolatry and this evil worship. And so all of this stuff that is coming up, you see it doesn't happen by coincidence, by accident, or just instantaneously. This stuff had been brewing for 2,000 years. Yeah. All right. So now let's look at the length of it. Anyway, we just read it. The purpose of it really is in 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 21. I shared that with you. We're not going to read that, where it talks about the failure to give the land a Sabbath. A Sabbath. So now understand that this Sabbath that the land have, it was every 7 years the land was supposed to be at rest. It wasn't supposed to plow. They wasn't supposed to put seed in the ground. They wasn't supposed to turn it over. They were supposed to leave the land and let it rest for 7 years. I mean, for every seventh year, one year out of every 7. And they failed to do that. So now, if you multiply 7 times 70, how many years do you get?
490.
Not 7, he says 70. 7 times 70.
490.
490. Yes, 490. So for 490 years, it failed to honor the Sabbath rest for the land. And so now God is going to get it back. He's going to give that land the rest. Excuse me. So now let's look at these 3 Babylonian invasions, because it did not occur all at once. It occurred in stages. The first invasion took place in 606 BC. And let me just take a sidebar here. The dates that you will see that are given concerning the book of Daniel and even other books in the Bible, we must, for us to fully understand how things happen, based on the author, based on the resources that you use, they have a system of developing a dating system. So one author may say the first invasion is 606 BC. Another author may say it was 605 BC. And you go on down the road, and you'll find out that they have these discrepancies that will arise. I would like you not to be confounded, conflicted, or doubtful when you find a discrepancy. You read one author like the Clarence Larkin, it says one thing. You may read another author that has a writing on the book of Daniel, and he may have a different dating system, though it's still in the same general area, but maybe 2 or 3 years of difference. Do not allow that to be the point that you are confused or conflicted. Just understand they may have used a different process at arriving at their dates. But long as the information, as far as the events, are in line with the Bible, they're correct. Their dating may be a little bit off, but when the events align with the Bible, that is what you go on, okay? All right, so the first invasion was 606 BC. Then you have the king that was in power at that time was Jehoiakim. He was king of Judah at that time, and you'll find that in Daniel 1:1. I'm pretty sure y'all read that scripture already. And then in the first invasion, you had Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They were taken captive. So their ages at that time was somewhere between 16 and 20 years old. That's another point where there's a difference of opinion on the ages of these as they was taken captive out of Jerusalem. And so then the second invasion was 597 BC. And all of this was done by Nebuchadnezzar. All these invasions were done by Nebuchadnezzar. And there are reasons why they did these waves. It wasn't all at once. And the original plan wasn't to just wipe out Jerusalem. His plan was to put a king in power that would honor him and that will follow his instructions, And he will left them there in Jerusalem. But each of these kings, they rebelled against his authority. And so therefore, boom, he will come back, he'll remove that king, he'll put another king in. And then when that king rebelled against his authority, he removed that king and came back the third time. He said, you know something, this ain't working. Let me just take y'all out of here. But all of this was in line with what was prophesied by Jeremiah and other prophets about them going into captivity. Their disobedience and their unwillingness to acquiesce to the command of God, that they submit and that they humble themselves under the hand of Nebuchadnezzar. They refuse to do it. And, you know, it's kind of hard, really, because they were the chosen people. They were the seed of David. How in the world could we humble ourselves under a heathen king? You know, to us, it seemed like it's elementary. You know, why y'all fighting? But back then, they did not have instant communication. Back then, they did not have helicopters and airplanes and aircraft that could fly in a moment's notice and cover 100 miles in a couple of minutes. Back then, if Nebuchadnezzar wanted to invade, he had to leave Babylon, travel a couple of thousand miles maybe with an army, which could take months. Then when he get there, they close the doors to the gates to Jerusalem. He got to sit outside the gates to starve them. So it could take years. And during that time, people get arrogant. They could disobey God. And listen, they get people rising up. Why are we yielding and bowing to this guy? Right. And that was a spirit of rebellion that they had among them, and God was going to break that spirit. So we have the second invasion in 597 BC. Jehoiachin was king. Then he was only king for like 3 months. He was taken captive in Babylon. Then, as we see, let me try to increase the size of this slide. Yeah. Okay. Is that better for y'all to see? Y'all
yes.
Let me know if y'all have a problem with viewing the slides. I have no problem trying to you know, expand it for your viewing ability and pleasure. All right. Okay. So so now he's taken into captivity 597 BC, but he'll later on be taken out of prison by Nebuchadnezzar's son. And during this second invasion, Ezekiel is taken captive. Let's read Ezekiel 1 through 3. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1 through 3. Could someone just read that, please, real quickly?
Chapter 1.
Ezekiel chapter 1.
Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1 through 3.
Now it came to pass.
Professor? Oh, okay, go ahead, you read it.
Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity, the word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel, the priest, the son of Buzi, and in the land of the Chaldeans, by the river Chebar, and the hand of the Lord was there upon him.
Okay, so now notice Ezekiel is not taken to where Daniel Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah is taken. He's taken to a different part of the Babylonian kingdom. He's not taken and put into a palace. He's not given special treatment and training and education. No, he is someone that's amongst the other captives that in some isolated region of Babylon. And we don't often talk about him relative to Daniel, but he is in captivity the same time that Daniel is, though he gets there a little bit later. But he ministers to the outcasts or the captives that's been taken out of Jerusalem. So that's his ministry. And here, but Daniel knows about him, and he knows about Daniel. So because they're writing prophets, and their prophecies and their writings is able to be distributed somehow. I don't know how they're at that time that they're in captivity, their writings are distributed, but it is somehow. All right. The third invasion.
Can I ask a question, Professor?
Yes, go ahead.
So Ezekiel, is he around the same age as Daniel, or is he older than
Ezekiel
Daniel?
is younger than Daniel.
Oh, he's younger. Okay.
He's younger than Daniel. You have three prophets that are contemporary during the captivities. You have Jeremiah, you have Ezekiel, and you have Daniel. That means that their ministries are pretty much in the same time period. And we're going to see a graph. We're going to see a graph on it. But Jeremiah is the oldest. So Jeremiah is an adult already. He's an adult when Babylon first invaded the land of Judah. Daniel is a teenager. And Ezekiel is a young boy.
Okay.
By the time he is taken into captivity, you notice it's 6 years after Daniel. Daniel was taken 606, Ezekiel is 597. That's 6 years after Daniel that Ezekiel is taken. So by the time he's taken, he may be around about 20 years old. All right.
Okay.
And so now I'm going to show you a graph on that before this evening is over.
And just one more question.
Yes.
One more quick question. Ezekiel. So Daniel was royalty.
Yes, he was of the royal class.
Right. So Ezekiel was not royalty.
No,
he was a commoner.
He was just a prophet. He was a prophet, but he was not of the royal class. He was not a seed of Hezekiah or any of the kings. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else got a question? All right. The third invasion, 586 BC. Zedekiah was king of Judah in 586. Then Mattaniah, who was the uncle of Jehoiachin, was named, his name was changed to Zedekiah by the Babylonian king. So in essence, Zedekiah, really his name was Mattaniah. His Hebrew name was Mattaniah. But when Nebuchadnezzar came the third time to implement him now as king, he changed his name to Zedekiah. Anyone remember why they changed the name of a person?
So to separate them from their religion, from their cultural ties, and to make them take on more of the attributes of their captors, right?
Right. So this is a practice to cause this loss of identity of your origin, the connection to your history. So it just did not occur here in America. It happened throughout history. And that way they control you. That way they limit your influence and your connection with your homeland. All right. So now when Zedekiah was taken captive, you see there it said he was taken captive. Nebuchadnezzar killed his children in front of his face. So Zedekiah is in chains. Nebuchadnezzar brings his children, kills them while Zedekiah is watching. Then he blinds or puts the eyes out of Zedekiah and take him captive back to Babylon. So the last thing that Zedekiah was able to see was to see that his children are killed. And then after that happened, the destruction of the temple, the tearing down the walls, the burning of Jerusalem. So that was the Babylonian invasion in the 3 stages of the invasion. And it was the direct results of their disobedience and their rebellion against God. And so here we have the route that was taken. The route that was taken.
See if I can find it in the Bible.
Is
that map in the Bible too?
No, this is I Googled it. I Googled it.
Okay.
So the maps that you will see me submit, they mostly Googled maps where it gives really the information I would like to share, so we could have an understanding and clarity on the process and the manner in which things happened. So the Israel captivity, you see here where my cursor is, you got Samaria and you got Jerusalem. Now Samaria is connected with the northern kingdom, the northern 10 tribes. As you notice, the green is the Babylonians took Judah. Well, no, sorry about the purple. The purple is the Assyrians. They took the northern kingdom out of their homeland before Nebuchadnezzar became king. So that was 721 BC that they took them out and they dispersed them. You see Nineveh there. So this is the route that the Assyrians took and dispersed the Israelis from the northern kingdom to other regions. And that's how they wound up in Russia and how they wound up in the Baltic state, Yugoslavia, Poland, Germany, all of these where you find pockets of the Jewish descendants. This mass captivity in Exodus from there. All right, so that was the purple line, and this is the dates that the Assyrians did this. And I had mentioned to y'all before about Jonah. The reason why Jonah did not want to go to Nineveh was because Nineveh was the capital of the Assyrian nation, who were enemies to the Israelites. He didn't want them to be delivered. He wanted them to be destroyed because there was a threat. There was an enemy. Okay. And so then you see the green line is the Babylonians. And the Babylonians take those in Jerusalem and Judah, and they take them down to Babylon. And in that region, you got Babylon here, the Tigris and the Euphrates River, and all of this is Babylonian. So those are the routes. And then You got the Assyrians take the Gentiles to Philia. So you got the Assyrians, so they use the Assyrians took people from here and put them into Samaria. And so they're the ones that repopulated the Samaria. So when Jesus goes back, really when Jesus goes, when Jesus,
this is awesome.
when Jesus goes to meet the woman at the well, let me show you. When Jesus goes to meet the woman at the well, the woman at the well, you know, there in chapter 9, the prostitute at the well, she's a Samaritan. She's not Jewish, she's a Samaritan. So her heritage is, you know, from a Gentile nation. Now what may have happened was the Assyrians did not take all of the people out of the northern kingdom. There probably was some that were still left, and they maybe had some left, but they brought, the Assyrians would take you out of the land so that they could really maintain control over you. The Babylonians, they wanted you to stay in the land, but the reason they took the Israelites out of the land, because the Israelites always rebelled. I mean, the Judaites, they kept rebelling against them. But the Assyrians want to remove you from the land and then repopulate the land with other people. That's the way they work. And so when Jesus goes to Jerusalem, go to Samaria, he said, I must go through to Samaria. He meets this woman by the well, and that woman by the well, Samaritan, and her heritage go back to Babylon. Though there may have been intermarriage and stuff. And so this is how all of this stuff plays out. All of this intermingling is going on, and how you find this conflict and this controversy between these nations. They're all mixed up over there, really. They're mixed up because of all of this taking captivity, exiling from one nation, you know, repopulating another nation. All of this stuff happens. All this stuff is going on. Okay.
That sounds like America to me.
Well, yeah, yes, very similar. Very similar. Okay. Let me try to rush through this because it's getting late. All right. So then next you have, these were the kings of Babylon. Now we normally really only hear in Daniel about two kings. Mainly two kings we hear about in the book of Daniel. And those kings is Nebuchadnezzar. We normally about Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. Though Belshazzar is not on this, he's on the next slide. But those are really the only two kings we hear about. But these are the kings that was in power during the Babylonian captivity. From Nebuchadnezzar. Now, this is Nebuchadnezzar's father, so he dies before the captivity take place. But you got Nebuchadnezzar, you got his son, you got his brother-in-law, because the son was murdered. The brother-in-law comes in, then the brother-in-law dies, and then the brother-in-law's son is still a child. He gets murdered. And he only, I think, get murdered like 3 months he served. And then you got Nabonidus, that's a king. So you only hear mainly about Nebuchadnezzar during the book of Daniel, because he's become the prominent one, the one that is most God is dealing with. God calls him the anointed one. So here's the family tree, though. Here's the family tree. You got
break it up.
Oh, sorry about that. So you got the family tree, you got Nabopolassar from 627 to 605. So he's really the one that starts building the kingdom up again. He starts restoring the power and assembling the military might of Babylon. but he dies, and his son Nebuchadnezzar now assumes power. And now Nebuchadnezzar becomes the one that God calls to invade Israel or Judah and take them captive. And so you have now from him, you have evil Merodach, then his daughter married whatever, I can't pronounce that name, y'all. Married him. Married him. So yeah, so he becomes the brother-in-law of this guy right here. Then you got Nitrocris from 556 to 593. Okay, then this marriage produced Lapshe Marduk. 2 months he served. He was killed, murdered. And so you have now what you're going to notice, and later on we're going to talk about this because I want y'all to explain this. You got Nitrocris served from 556 BC to 539 BC. Belshazzar is 553 BC to 539 BC. We don't hear anything about this guy, Nitrocris. Don't hear nothing about him, but we do hear about Belshazzar.
Right.
Now we're going to talk about Belshazzar later, but just as something to give you something to think about, I would like y'all to find out about Belshazzar, because we're going to get to him probably in chapter 5, but y'all find out, begin doing some investigation on Belshazzar.
Belshazzar.
You'll find out he's an interesting character. And then here is the extent of the Babylonian kingdom. Right. So here's the extent of the Babylonian kingdom. Now notice all of those nations. They are the present day nations. They're different names, but there was those people group that the ancestors. The ancestors had different names for the nations, but these are the same group of people. And that's another reason why there's such hostility in this region. You got Iraq, you got Iran. Look where Babylon is. You got Jordan, Israel, Syria. Now these are present day names. Only Israel is current name for today. Iran is a relatively new name. Iraq is a relatively new name. Syria been around for years, for decades, for millenniums, really. Turkey is a relatively new name. It was something else before. Saudi Arabia, it was basically Arabia before. The Egypt always been there, but all of this stuff been going on for millenniums, and it's all coming to a head now. All of this stuff is about to wind down. We are in a season where all of this stuff is winding down. And it is, and you're seeing biblical prophecy being fulfilled. We're witnessing it. We're part of it. And so we need not be afraid, because we already know what the end of the story is. We should not be surprised too much, because it's already been foretold. And so we're reading and studying this book of Daniel, and it shows you the wisdom of God, the foreknowledge of God, and the plan of God. It shows you that. So don't think this is something that is just recent. No, God made and known. And that's why we should believe in God. Don't lose your trust in God. Don't lose your confidence in God. God is still in control. God planned it. God allowed it, and he just made it known what's going to happen. So we're not taken by surprise, so that we're not feeling hopeless. I don't know about you, but remember when I told y'all earlier in the class that we did an extensive study in my church on the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. The reason why I did that was because when this pandemic happened, there was so much stuff that was out there being over the internet, over YouTube. You have so many people prophesying one thing, saying this and talking about all of the mark of the beast and about the tribulation period. And I mean, they were spewing such condemnation and damnation on the world and the cataclysmic end, and we're all at the point right now. I had to make sure that the people that I minister to is informed and knew how to handle all of this stuff that was being thrown at us. So it benefited us, allowed us to know that God's still in control, and that we just follow what his word says. And when we use the word of God, we don't have to be intimidated by anything that goes on in the world. Now, we may not like some of the stuff that goes in the world, but you don't have to be intimidated or fearful, because God already has given us warning and awareness. Okay, everyone? Anyone got any question?
I do.
Yes.
I have a question for you. I like reviewing Daniel and Revelation, Professor, and I just wondered if, since you taught your church members about what was happening with end times prophecy, would you mind sharing some material with us? I'm one of these people that I will print out information and study it myself. I know it's not part of our class that you're teaching us right now, but I'm very much interested in studying Revelation and Daniel's together to the correlation. I like end times prophecy.
Okay. Well, there's restrictions with time that we have. And so I have to fulfill the requirements of the school.
Yes.
That's my first obligation.
Absolutely.
Now, but it's during this study, we will delve into Revelation. You cannot study Daniel without touching Revelation. So there will be some things that we'll be able to cover. And when I have some additional stuff that I can assemble, I will make it available to you. That would be what do you call it? Additional information that you could do on a private study on your own.
Okay.
So I will share some of those things with you. So, but God bless y'all. Y'all have a good day. Let us just say a prayer.